It's time for the Rider Dynasty podcast. Let's go! Welcome to the Rider Dynasty podcast with Ryan Bickerstaff, JJ Wenner, and your host, Michael Kloss.
And welcome back, Riders! This is the Rider Dynasty podcast. I am so excited to be here representing. I am your host, Michael Kloss. My friends, my co-hosts, my co-founders are excited to get to quarterback rankings today. But first, say hello to JJ Wenner on the mic tonight. What's up, JJ?
I'm ready and hyped, plus I'm amped. Most of my heroes don't appear on no stamps. What's going on?
Man, okay, my wife always accuses me of not being able to freestyle, so I'm just going to applaud with the golf clap here because I was really excited about that, and that did get me hype. And guess what else makes me hype? Ryan Bickerstaff. You are coming in hot, ready to talk to some quarterbacks tonight, huh, Ryan?
Yeah, I'm not sure how hot I'm coming in, but hell yeah, I'm ready to talk some quarterbacks.
It's like if you were a hot sauce right now, would you be like muy caliente for quarterbacks? I think yes.
Yeah.
Please tell me yes.
Yeah, safe to say.
Well, we are especially honored to have a special guest and a friend of the pod on with us tonight. JJ, can you please introduce our man of the hour?
Man, I don't even know where to start with our newest addition. I'd like to welcome Nick Mirabito to the podcast. Nick is a certified athletic trainer and will be joining us as our resident injury analyst. But really quickly, I just want to say, I have known Nick since he was in kindergarten with my twins. He and my son have been great friends since then. And I actually had the pleasure of coaching Nick in basketball. He was my favorite player for 8 years before he went to college. We used to call, what did we used to call you because of your little bald spot?
I think it was Manu. I think that's what it was.
Manu.
Yeah,
Because he would just put down his head and dribble.
Thanks for bringing. That's awesome.
Oh, sorry, buddy. But Nick actually started a father-son redraft league back in 2011, which is now entering its 9th season. And I will say, a league where 4 of the past 5 years have been won by either my son or myself. Thank you.
Man, I was about to say you were buttering him up, but just up until that moment.
He is a great kid. I love him, and I'm so ecstatic to have him joining our merry band of miscreants. Nick.
Thanks so much for that introduction, JJ. Really glad to be here. Yes, you might know more about fantasy than me, but I definitely know more than you about medical stuff. So I'm here today to give some medical perspective on some of these quarterbacks we're going to talk about.
Yeah, he's got you there, JJ.
Absolutely. I know nothing about medicine. So, Nick, I gave the people the story of your youth and your bald spot. But tell us about your career as an athletic trainer so far.
Of course. So, as you mentioned, I am a certified athletic trainer. Recently graduated from the University of Pittsburgh. Hail to Pitt. So far, I've been fortunate enough to work with athletes at all levels, from high school to D3, D1. I even got the chance to work with some professional baseball players at the AAA level. Right now, I'm getting my master's in kinesiology at Temple University, where I get to work clinically with a bunch of Temple sports, as well as teach anatomy and physiology to help pay for my education, trying not to accrue any more student loans there, you know.
Good plan.
Yeah. So if I had to choose a specialty, I would say it's definitely the shoulder. My current line of research, as I work toward my master's, is about the musculature around the shoulder, specifically in overhead athletes, like pitchers, swimmers, and quarterbacks, right? And how they adapt over the course of their careers.
Well, being the master of transitions, speaking of shoulders, Cam Newton question. With his recent history of shoulder issues, should we be worried coming into this year about Cam?
Well, let me just take you back and kind of go through some of his history, right? So in 2016, he played with a rotator cuff injury. He did play through most of the year, and on a per game basis, he was QB8 that year, so still did pretty solid. That offseason, he had surgery. It was a partially torn rotator cuff, which isn't too uncommon in overhead athletes. He went on a throwing program, went through rehab, felt great before the 2017 season, and that year he was QB2. So December this year is where things started to come back up again. He was shut down for the year with another shoulder injury. Some would say because they were already out of contention. He might have been able to play through it, but since they were out, it was not something they were going to risk. According to reports, the surgery in January was to clear out scar tissue, and the scar tissue was causing him discomfort, limiting his range of motion. And in a pretty awesome, transparent YouTube video that Cam posted, he claimed that he couldn't throw the ball more than 30 yards downfield and really, really lacked confidence, right? So recently, he says he's been feeling great. He has full strength back in his arm. As soon as Wednesday, we got news that he was going to avoid the PUP list, which is great.
Right.
Ron Rivera said in an interview that he's ready to roll and he's going to be on a pitch count, but I don't want to throw up any red flags when we hear that word pitch count. Right now, he's going to be on kind of a progressive throwing program. It's very normal for athletes coming off of these types of injuries. If you think back to Andrew Luck, last year, in fact, he was going under the same type of thing. So, we'll keep our eyes open for updates. And they reported to camp today, actually, Thursday. So we'll see how he does. But right now, I really have no reservations going into the season at all. After this amount of time, he should be fine structurally. All rotations should be back to normal. And that increased confidence should definitely lend itself to one of those great Cam seasons that we've seen in the past. He's one of those players that definitely feeds off of that type of thing.
All right, so quick question then. In June, Newton was throwing at OTAs with a different motion. Is that something we should be concerned about?
No, I don't think it's a concern at all. From the video I've seen, it looks like his motion is actually a little more controlled than it was before, getting a little more energy transfer from his lower body and then getting into his arm, as opposed to being almost all arm like it was before. And that puts less stress on the joint. And, when you think of changing mechanics, maybe with other quarterbacks, you wonder how's that going to affect their accuracy, but that's really never been Cam's calling card. It's his legs that make him special, right? So really no concerns with the throwing motion for me.
Just to talk about another QB who I know is one of your favorites. Coming off injury, Carson Wentz. I hate the term injury prone, but does it fit with Carson?
Yeah, so let's talk about that term injury prone first, right? So
please do.
Yeah, so when I think of injury prone, I think about guys that sustain continuous related injuries, right? If you think about soft tissue injuries, hamstring injuries, things like that, specifically those recurring ones that we've seen actually in another Eagle, Alshon Jeffrey, over the years, we've seen that. When you think of a couple unrelated, almost like what people call freak injuries, right, that happen in football just because of the inherent violence, that doesn't make a player injury prone, right? So if you think back to someone like Keenan Allen, I remember not too long ago, he carried that injury prone label. He tore his ACL. He had a lacerated kidney, which is about as freak of an injury as you can have. And he missed 2 years, and people threw that label of injury prone on him.
Right.
But he's not injury prone, right? You've seen him bounce back. You've seen he's had a great career. That is not injury prone. So let's talk about where Carson fits into this thing, right? So his rookie year, 2016, he did have a rib injury in the preseason. He was shut down for the preseason, but honestly, that was probably just a decision that was made just to protect their investment. But he went on to play all 16 games that year, right? Then in December of 2017, as he was playing great leading up to the point of injury, right? It was a contact injury, which is super rare for an ACL injury, right? So he tore his ACL and LCL. Normally you have that foot planted in the ground. Usually, sometimes it's non-contact, sometimes it's contact, but usually the foot is planted in the ground. So it was kind of an odd mechanism of two players kind of colliding, causing that injury. Now he's 2 years removed, and honestly, I have zero concerns about that knee at this point. He's not wearing his brace anymore, and 2 years removed from a surgery like that shouldn't be any issue. Because prior to that, he never had any knee injuries. So moving on to the back, that's been his latest issue that shut him down in 2018. It was ruled a stress fracture in his lumbar vertebrae. And, if you think back to the reports at the time that were coming out, people were wondering, did the medical staff miss something? And the thing is, back injuries, imaging can be very tricky, right? You could find people that have herniated discs and stress fractures in their back, and they have no symptoms at all, right? They can go living their life playing sports, having no issues. And it can work conversely too, right? So you can have someone with back spasms and pain, but nothing comes up when you get imaging. And sometimes those stress fractures don't even show up until you see some healing, right? So it really comes down to the symptoms and how the player is feeling and whether or not there is pain. So as of right now, as recently as early June, Doug Peterson said that there were no limitations on Carson Wentz at all. And today at training camp, he reiterated that there were going to be no limitations. Carson also spoke, says he feels much healthier, ready to go. He said he can play in the preseason. He's 100% cleared. It's just up to Doug if he wants to play him. He also said today during his interview that he got a little leaner this offseason, which is always good when it comes to the back, right? So I know I am an Eagles fan, so I'm putting my bias aside for this one. While I don't necessarily see Carson fitting into that injury-prone level, right, recurring similar injuries, I do think, in kind of the same boat as Cam, the style of play does lend itself to be more likely to get injured than, say, Phillip Rivers, Eli Manning, Tom Brady, those guys. Right. So that's just the inherent risk that you're going to take. But the upside is always there, right? We saw in 2016 that he played all 16 regular season games, so he can do it. It's just a matter of seeing if he can do it moving forward.
I mean, I would say that's probably the best explanation that I've heard of Carson Wentz. I think that dynasty owners really want to know that, or can we expect him back to that 2016 or 2017 form in 2019?
Right, and totally fair question. And as an Eagles fan, yes, right? I want to scream and stand at the top of the Comcast building down here in Philly and scream yes, right? From a medical perspective, putting my bias aside, look, he's 100% healthy heading into the 2019 season. His knee and back are behind him. This offseason, the Eagles team doctors who get to see him every day said clearly nothing to Howie Roseman, who decided to give him over $120 million for an extension. So, I don't see any issues heading into 2019 or moving forward.
All right, so we have one last injured quarterback, Jimmy Garoppolo. Do you have any updates on him?
Yeah, so it's still a little early because the 49ers haven't reported to camp, so there aren't too many reports out there. But from what I've seen, he should be all right. So just kind of going back to what happened, right? He tore his ACL in early October. It was not a multi-ligament injury, which is good, right? It was just the ACL. So it's now been more than 9 months now that we're sitting here in July, end of July. In interviews, he's talked about feeling good, very comfortable in his knee brace, which is actually kind of surprising. It's usually you hear the opposite. He mentioned that during OTAs, and there were points where he was taking snaps from under center in a non-contact capacity, working on awkward deliveries, working outside the pocket, agility types of things. And that's a good sign because that's the last step of the rehab process before they get cleared for contact, right? You want to see them in a game type of situation. You want to see them throwing those awkward deliveries. So right now there are no reports saying that he's been cleared for contact quite yet, but like I said, they report Friday, so we will see what happens. I will definitely keep you guys updated on that. And, it's his first real serious injury, and it's been over 9 months. He looks on track for 2019 so far. And, from a medical perspective, he should be fine. I'll leave the fantasy perspective up to you guys.
Hey, Michael Kloss.
Yes, sir.
My boy Nick is wicked smart.
I can totally see that. Thank you, Nick. For really giving us that valuable insight from the medical perspective. In our main segment today, we're going to run through our dynasty quarterback rankings, and of course, you are invited to hang around for that and share some of your opinions too when we get to those quarterback rankings. And don't be shy either. Sometimes you got to tell JJ to shut up or tell him he's wrong.
I will not hesitate to tell JJ to shut up. Don't you worry.
He has done it.
He coached me in basketball. Remember? I'm sure I did it many times. Yes, absolutely.
Well, I already like you already because I'm an Eagles fan too, so I'm excited
to hear it.
Some of that info. But let's transition a little bit to the news desk. there's been a lot of things, and it's hard. I'm going to lead right here with, I would say, the biggest news to drop since our last pod, and that's Tyreek Hill will reportedly not be suspended by the NFL, not even for a single game. So, Ryan, I'm looking to you. I know I'm not going to cast judgment here just yet. Obviously, Hill's stock is rapidly going up, but what are you advising owners to do with Mecole Hardman, who was rising in rookie drafts to be the possible Tyreek Hill replacement?
I'm telling them not to panic. Hold him if you have him. I still see a future in Kansas City where Hill lines up on one side and Hardman is on the other. It just might not be this year.
Yeah, you know what, Michael? Ryan said a couple weeks ago, and he kind of pissed me off, that Mecole Hardman was not a Tyreek Hill replacement. He was a Sammy Watkins replacement. So, Ryan, I hate you. I love Sammy Watkins. I won't go into it again. But, Ryan, you kind of nailed that, I think.
Are you, Nick, I hope you listen to some past pods because JJ wrote a very steamy love letter.
Yes,
to Sammy
I've heard.
Watkins.
It's widely publicized his love for Sammy Watkins. Yes.
I mean, I was sweating a little bit. It was nice. All right, well, we're going to move on. Add Michael Thomas to the list of camp holdouts. That happened today. Thomas is seeking a new deal per NFL.com reporters Ian Rappaport and Mike Garofalo. Thomas is entering the final year of his rookie contract. I would say he certainly deserves the payday, breaking record for receptions in his first 3 seasons. While that news stands on its own, JJ, where are you on the concern meter right now? I know that Saints GM Mickey Loomis said that the talks were underway for a new contract for Thomas in late June, but we still have no deal.
Man, to quote Teddy KGB, pay him, pay that man his money.
He beat me. Straight up.
He beat me. I'm repeating this from a previous podcast. There is nothing to say about Michael Thomas that his stats don't scream. 321 receptions, 3,700 yards, 23 TDs in his first 3 seasons. He is my number 2 receiver. His ADP is wide receiver 4. I'll let Teddy KGB tell you again.
Pay him. Pay that man his money.
Thanks, Teddy.
Wonderful. Let's keep it moving. Free agent running back Jay Ajayi has been cleared by Dr. James Andrews to play in 2019 per multiple sources. Nick, this seems like it's right up your alley. Would you say that he's worth the dynasty stash after those injuries?
Ajayi's had injury concerns dating all the way back to the 2015 draft, right? Teams have shied away from him because of degenerative changes found in his knees. He's not even on a team right now. If a team gives him a chance, he's going to be in a committee to try to keep him healthy, for a stretch run similar to how he was on the Eagles. He's a hard runner, and that lends itself to maybe some of these injuries. He's been plagued by these injuries since his entire career. I'm definitely not jumping at the chance to snag Jay Ajayi right now.
Yeah, he had a couple of those, 200-yard games, but I guess everybody gets to play Buffalo twice a season when you're playing from Miami. I'm sorry. Okay. Out of Giants camp, this is going to wrap up our news. Pat Shurmur has just been gushing about quarterback Daniel Jones. No mention really, though, on how many reps he'll let Jones take with the first-team offense. So, JJ, I've got a 2-part question for you.
All right, I'm ready.
Okay, the first is like this normal high draft coach speak fluff, and how many games do you see Daniel Jones start in 2019?
Of course, it's coach speak. This is the off season. Everybody's great. Everybody gets a trophy. It's awesome. How many games does Daniel Jones start? I'm projecting him to start 8 games. I don't see Eli doing that great, but they're definitely going to let Eli start. And hopefully after Eli has a few bad games in a row and they're out of contention after week 1, maybe Daniel Jones will start working into that rotation a little bit more, because I guess he's the future? Question mark.
If he's not, who is, right? Not Kyle Lauletta. At least I'm guessing on that, but probably not. That's going to wrap it up for our news desk. You can follow all of the rankings, news, and our content on our Twitter. We're at Ride or Dynasty, and you can check out all of our other content and articles and rankings too on our website. That is rideordynasty.com. So let's get to our main segment here, the Ride or Dynasty Crew's quarterback rankings. So, Ryan, would you maybe begin by telling us how we came to these rankings?
When we were building these rankings, we asked ourselves, what type of player will this guy be for the next 3 years? So we'll be presenting our combined rankings, but each of us will point out certain quarterbacks we had higher or lower in our personal rankings.
Yeah, after we were all done ranking the players, I averaged the rank per player. Ties were broken by the median of the ranks. I then broke the players into tiers based on where there was a significant drop-off of more than like 2.5 points in an average rank. For example, our 13th ranked player averaged an 11.7, and our 14th averaged 16. So there's a definitive drop-off there. When drafting, as a reminder, you should always aim for the last player in a tier to maximize the value. Don't reach, but get the last person in that tier, and you'll have a great draft.
Great advice. If you need to rewind it about 30 seconds just to listen to that again, I recommend it. Let's get to it, though. For now, you're a smart listener. You understand rankings. Let's go. So, number one, our quarterback in Tier 1, not a big surprise, it's Patrick Mahomes. He was our consensus number one. He has a ton of accolades last year. He was the MVP. He led the league in passing yards and touchdowns. And guess what? He just got Tyreek Hill back. So, in my estimation, this is the obvious choice, but I do believe he earned it here. The Chiefs still have players and weapons all over the field. Mahomes is the general, and as you've seen in some of those crazy GIFs on Twitter that are all over the place on Patrick Mahomes, and of course in the highlights, he makes plays with his feet. And Hill, Kelsey, Williams, and Watkins are going to get in space, and that is just downright terrifying. So Patrick Mahomes, number one. Any argument there? You guys, we ranked him, so we're pretty happy with that.
Yeah, that was consensus.
Yeah. Okay, so our quarterback number two is Andrew Luck. All right, he is our second-ranked quarterback. Again, Luck had the second most yardage in his career in 2018, second most touchdowns, and a career high in completion percentage. I mean, that was with a cadre of tight ends that were back and forth off the IR, T.Y. Hilton included. I would say, Nick, me looking at this, now he adds Paris Campbell, Deion Kane, a couple of other players, a healthy Jack Doyle. All signs to me point to 2019 being the year that Luck really shows out. Do you agree?
Absolutely, Michael. I know leading up to last year, people were concerned about Andrew Luck's shoulder and his ability to stay healthy. I think I can actually recall a specific conversation I had with JJ where he was petrified because there was a video of him throwing a Nerf ball or something. I don't know. He was in a panic the whole time.
I was.
But I think he really showed last year that the shoulder is good to go. He stayed healthy, didn't take unnecessary hits, and he should be fine moving forward.
So then let's look at our third-ranked quarterback, and that is Deshaun Watson. Nick, will stay with you.
Yeah, and same idea here with Deshaun Watson. Yeah, one full season removed from tearing his ACL. He was able to stay healthy last year, and I really don't see any reason that shouldn't continue. He has so much talent, makes plays with his legs, with his arm, so you're going to get all kinds of fantasy points from Deshaun Watson.
So, again, we're still in Tier 1. Patrick Mahomes was number 1, Andrew Luck number 2. Deshaun Watson is ranked number 3 for us, and number 4 is Baker Mayfield.
Yeah, or as Ryan calls him, Baker.
Oh, you did it. Ryan, I'm sorry if you told us that in confidence.
I swear to you, Michael, millennials are the freaking worst. Baker is very talented with an amazing group of skill players around him. Outside of injury, I can't see any way that he drops from the top 5 QBs for the next 10 years.
I think that's true. Ryan, you want to defend yourself there for a second? Are you okay?
Oh, no, I'm okay with that. That's spot on.
He's like, I love the name. I'm a millennial. Whatever. So as I can quickly, again, your tier 1 quarterbacks that the Ryder Dynasty crew has, Patrick Mahomes, Andrew Luck, Deshaun Watson, and Baker Mayfield are our tier 1 in the top 4. So let's move to our tier 2 quarterbacks. And Ryan, we have Aaron Rodgers ranked at number 5 here.
Rodgers, he had one down year last year, and people started to freak out. And what's funny is that it really wasn't a down year at all. He threw 25 touchdowns to 2 interceptions for the second highest yardage count of his career. It was over 4,400. And this was all while being injured since week 1. He's going to turn 36 in December, but I don't see him calling it quits anytime soon. So keep rolling with Aaron Rodgers. He's not going anywhere, and no, he has not fallen off.
So it's interesting in our rankings, too, that we're going to run into some ties just because of the average, right? And Aaron Rodgers just, I guess we're saying edged out, or we can talk about this tie because our 6th ranked quarterback is Carson Wentz. I'm going to kind of really quickly say that I had Rodgers above Carson Wentz just because, again, if what JJ says, we're looking at this 3-year window, right? I'm putting more of my trust in Aaron Rodgers to be elite. I love Carson Wentz. Like I said, I'm an Eagles fan, but I've got to go the Aaron Rodgers route if we're putting one over the other. With Carson Wentz, who's taking this one? Is that you, Nick?
Yeah, so look, earlier I gave you my true objective medical opinion on Carson Wentz, and right now I'm going to do the opposite of that. Right, I'm going to tell you why I love Carson Wentz so much and why he deserves this number 6 spot, if not even higher. Okay, so look, he is so talented, and when you think back to 2017, before he went out in Week 14, he was the runaway MVP. Wasn't even close, right? Assuming health, he's everything you want in a franchise quarterback. Big, strong arm, mobile. He's like Houdini in the pocket, right? So smart, student of the game. Also very handsome, very nice, right? He's a man of faith, which never hurts. And just think about this, right? Think about the pressure that is off of his shoulders now that he doesn't have to feel demasculated showering next to Nick Foles, right? so look, things are looking up for Carson Wentz. He is number 6 in these rankings, but he is firmly number 1 in my heart.
Let me tell you, anytime we can make a BDN reference, I am all for it. Though it's a family show, I won't say it out loud. Though you might get me riled up a little bit later.
Hey, can I just get approval from the other founders? I am going to add some romantic music to that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely.
All right, thank you.
Now it said you probably already heard it at this point, but that's fantastic.
Yes, the miracle of editing. So coming in number 7 on our rankings is Matt Ryan. He's an old dog, but he's not too old. He turned 34 in May, so he will definitely still be playing in 2021. He's playing on a great offense with great weapons. He had a down year 2 years ago. He slowly came back up last year. I believe, actually, he didn't slowly come back up. He was the number 2 behind Pat Mahomes, who everybody was behind Pat Mahomes. And I don't see any reason why Matt Ryan can't continue to produce for the next 3 years. He is a solid pick as your QB1 in any format.
I feel like people keep forgetting that, he in fantasy points, he was like top 3 the last, again, 2 of the 3 years. So, an absolute steal if you even get him late. Again, still in tier 2, and our 8th ranked quarterback is Russell Wilson. I'm actually, I guess, the lowest, because you both ranked him, let's see, you both ranked him 8, and I ranked him 9th, so he comes in at 8th. Let's talk about Russell Wilson for a second, right? He's on a run-first team under Brian Schottenheimer. Schottenheimer has been vocal about using his receivers, especially Tyler Lockett, all over the field. But this is where I struggle, but let's just get down to brass tacks, okay? Sometimes you got to follow the money. And Wilson is the highest paid player in the league. I think that you have to be able to utilize him in a way that that person is not going to be just sitting on the side as much as you like to run, correct? You're not going to just run him out and hand off the ball to your running backs. Sure, they've got a much more improved O-line, and I know how Schottenheimer likes to run and that power offense, but this is Russell Wilson here. He was looked at as a QB1. That was at the beginning of last year. I remember listening to podcasts and all of us talking ourselves that Wilson was like in the conversation coming off that year to be the QB1. And now we're talking to him at 8th. I just still think that he's top 10. I still think that he's a solid play. So he is coming in at number 8 overall.
All right. Well, our next pick is for number 9 is Kyler Murray. Just to let you know, Kyler Murray is the first of 4 players that represent the largest disparity between our individual ranks. So for these 4 players, we're going to have a little bit of a debate over who is right and who is wrong. Okay? Spoiler alert, I'm right. So, Ryan, if you could go ahead and do me the honors.
Yeah, absolutely, JJ. I see you're humble as ever tonight. All right, so Kyler Murray, yeah, we have him coming in at 9th here. Michael has him as his QB 13, and JJ, you have Kyler ranked at number 6. All right, and this is going to be the first of 3 head-to-head matchups between JJ and Michael tonight, so I'm going to declare a winner at the very end. But without further ado, fight.
All right, I'm going to go first. So, Michael, you can just pass. So, we have in this our second. This is easy, right? I don't even know what we're discussing. There is a rookie coach who's going to throw the ball a ton. There is a rookie QB who is a dual threat quarterback. The coach isn't getting fired in the next 3 years. Murray's not getting benched in the next 3 years. All they're going to do is throw the ball. He's going to put up crazy stats, both passing and running. So there is no reason why he is not easily in the top 10.
All right, okay, so I think where I have him ranked, as Ryan said, I have him at 13 overall, okay?
Boo.
13, right? Some of the quarterbacks that we've been talking about, like Carson Wentz and Aaron Rodgers and Russell Wilson, Matt Ryan, right? 13 is not really that concerned. 13 to me, I was essentially agreeing with all of the points that you had. I put him at 13 over the Lamar Jacksons, over the Jameis Winstons, over the Mitchell Trubiskys, players that have had a year or 2 or more in an offense that have proved themselves at the NFL level. Kyler Murray is a great arm, but he is a little dude. Like I said, I have nothing to argue with you about his talent and his ability to lead that offense. I think 13 is quite the spot to put him in without having him take an NFL snap. I felt like I was taking a big jump at 13, but you're going completely off the cliff, Kingsbury.
Oh, God,
Very
you did
well
that,
done.
didn't you?
That was very well done.
Well done. Yes.
All right, Ryan, let's hear it.
No. Ryan said he's going to wait till the end of our 3 matchups. So
Fair,
that was
fair.
number 1. So 1 point JJ, 0 points Michael. All right. So now we have our second biggest disparity overall. Michael Kloss has Goff ranked as QB 6, which is clearly Kyler Murray's slot. And Ryan is at QB 15. Ryan, can you let the Riders know why you are so down on Jared Goff?
Yes, JJ. All right. So, despite Goff finishing 2018 as a top 10 fantasy quarterback, he was exposed as the system quarterback he is in the second half of last year, especially after Cooper Kupp went down. He was the number 16 quarterback from weeks 10 on. He was QB3 through weeks 1 through 9, for context. He had a couple of good games in there down the stretch, but one was in week 17 and had little impact on fantasy leagues, and he was pretty much useless through the playoffs and the championship rounds. This all said, Goff is definitely in the top half of quarterbacks in the NFL right now. I'm even willing to admit that 15 is too low. But the difference in Goff's play from the first and second half of last year is too great, and I can't call a quarterback who can't survive the loss of just one of his receivers a QB1 option. I just can't. I'm also expecting a step back overall for the Rams in 2019. That means quarterback play, offense in general, defense. They're going to feel a Super Bowl hangover. I just have a feeling about this. And so I'm just letting somebody else draft Goff in my leagues. I think long term he'll fall closer to the middle of the pack, and I like other options better.
All right. Go ahead, Michael.
All right. So if Sean McVay is worth anything as a coach and is the genius that all of us believe he is, the Rams are not going to have a Super Bowl hangover. That's point one. Point two is every single person that has questions over who's going to be the leading Rams receiver on the team is still accounting for probably about 1,000 yards or more from each receiver. Okay? Now, 3,000 yards is not going to put Goff in QB1 territory, but let's be honest. This is a top 3 offense, and Goff is the quarterback on a top 3 offense. Yeah, I have him at 6th overall for me because Ryan's just blatant disrespect. He's being pushed down to 10, which is still a consensus QB1. I don't expect every single game to be the Rams versus the Chiefs, but regardless, I'm banking on a great coach with great receivers and a running game that is suspect. Whatever you think of Gurley and what them bringing in Henderson as well, and McVay's quotes of Henderson having some Kamara-like role with passing, this is going to be a year where Goff absolutely lights it up because they cannot depend on all of the rushing that Todd Gurley provided them in the first half to the near second half of the season before he started having knee issues. Expect a tremendous push from Jared Goff, my 6th rank quarterback.
Here come the judge. Michael, you made some good points, but just because of your verbiosity,
Hater.
the more words you say doesn't make a stronger argument.
Did I not put the right emphasis on my syllables?
I am going to... I agree more with Michael, but I'm giving the argument to Ryan. Honestly, I kind of dazed off halfway through what you were saying, Michael. We're having a little bit of a fight on the Slack channel for another Dynasty League I'm in. So, point goes to Ryan. Sorry, brother.
It's because I took Robbie Anderson from you.
You son of a bitch.
Really quickly, if I could just pop in for 1 second.
No, not allowed. Sorry, Nick.
Oh, all right. Yeah,
Go ahead.
Cool. Never mind. No. So, yeah, Michael, you talked about Todd Gurley there a little bit. And I can shed a little bit of light on that situation for you guys. So, the Rams haven't reported to training camp yet, so we're still waiting on some more reporting on this front. But in general, right, the plan with Todd Gurley is just going to be to limit his workload to get him to the playoffs, right? We've heard different reports. We've heard Chris Mortensen use the word arthritic. Todd Gurley says his knee is fine. A lot of people are scared of Todd Gurley right now. Ultimately, I think it's going to come down to the Rams have a plan, right? We have not seen the plan yet. Don't anticipate him in preseason. Todd Gurley doesn't need to do preseason, right? We all know how good he is. So it's something to just keep an eye on, and we'll see how they kind of manage him throughout the season. But I don't think we can expect the same workload as last year, but he's still just so talented. So I think no matter what, he is going to produce, just maybe not up to the standard that he did last year.
Yeah, I'm thinking that workload is going to transfer over to my man Goff.
Coming in next at number 11 is Sam Darnold of the New York Jets. Ranking Jets players is very hard for me. I am torn between two trains of thoughts, much like Chris Taylor was torn between Barnes and Elias in Platoon. The fan in me and the Jets fan have this fight. I am very excited about Joe Douglas becoming our GM and think that they are going to build a very solid team around Darnold.
By the way, JJ, I think you guys are going to love Joe Douglas. I think he did a great job with the Eagles, really respected through the entire organization, great talent evaluator.
Oh, I love to hear that. So Darnold is young and talented. And remember that these rankings are based off of the next 3 seasons. Sam Darnold's only going to be 25 at the beginning of that 3rd season. He is so young that if we keep doing these 3-year rankings, he could have 5 more sets of these 3-year rankings. So I am so excited for Sam Darnold, and he is easily our number 11.
Number 12, Ryan.
So number 12, we have Cam Newton coming in, and I know you may be thinking, whoa, Kyler, Goff, and Darnold above Cam? All right, so here's the thing about Cam. To start off, I'm expecting a bounce-back year for him in 2019. I like him a lot as a redraft option, but I don't know what to make of him over the next 3 years. He's inconsistent year to year, and I don't like drafting players where I have to kind of play this guessing game like that. Which version of Newton am I getting? Is it the 2015 MVP Cam? Is it 2017 Cam where he was the number 2 fantasy quarterback? Or will it be the version we saw in 2014 or 2016 where he finished 17th both those years? You know, I already know what's behind door number 1. It's unpredictability. I'd rather take a shot on Darnold or Murray. What those guys can develop into, if they reach that potential, they'll be just as good or better fantasy options than Cam Newton, especially because Cam Newton's going into his age 30 season. I wonder how much longer he'll be an effective runner. But either way, for right now, he's still a quarterback 1, which is why I have him ranked number 11. But overall, he comes in at number 12 for us.
All right, so number 13 is Dak Prescott of the Dallas Cowboys, one of my favorite players to watch, only because he's hated on so much. What do we think about Dak Prescott?
Yeah, I thought Dak was a top 10 quarterback, right? What gives? Dak going by
I have him top 10.
I have him not top 10. Sorry about that. Going by the statistics, yes, Dak Prescott is a top 10 fantasy quarterback and has been his whole career. I have him at number 12 in my rankings. If we're looking at a 3-year window, I'm looking at the list of quarterbacks ahead of him, and I'm asking myself, which one would I rather have? Which one would I pass on to take Dak? And I can't really come up with one. Darnold and Murray have more potential. Prescott versus Newton might be an interesting debate, but all the guys in the 1 through 8 spots, I think are pretty obvious that you'd rather have than Dak.
Agreed.
I don't think there's anything too controversial there. What if Dallas doesn't extend Dak? Who does he go play for? What is that situation going to look like? What if Dallas lets Ezekiel Elliott walk? Because, Dak and Zeke, they kind of go hand in hand on that Dallas offense. Prescott, he's a good quarterback, but he has to rely on his supporting cast being very strong to be as good as he is. Still, he rounds out my QB1 options, and I'm very excited to see what kind of fresh ideas Kellen Moore brings to the Dallas offense, as well as what a full year of the Prescott-Cooper connection is going to look like. So, Dak Prescott comes in at number 13.
Yeah, that's Prescott-Cooper is what I'm excited to see.
Yeah, Dak and Zeke go together like peas and carrots, Janny.
We're killing the movie references today, I think.
Yeah, sorry about that. I have
No,
really
I love
bad
it.
impressions.
I love it.
So, just to Michael, can you quick recap our tier 2?
It was Aaron Rodgers, Carson Wentz at 6, Matt Ryan at 7, Russell Wilson at 8. Wow, Kyler Murray comes in at 9, Jared Goff at 10. As we continue, Sam Darnold was at 11. Halfway through at 12, we said Cam Newton is coming in at 12, and Dak Prescott still in this tier at 13.
Thank you so much, Michael. So, after all of the rankings, our next tier is a strange tier. Our tier 3, I call it the tier of ties. It's comprised of 2 different sets of ties. Michael and Ryan are going to play a little game that I like to call, from my business background, opportunities and obstacles.
Game
All
show
right.
music, woo!
All right, so each player is going to be asked to provide either an opportunity, which will bump up a player's rank, or an obstacle, which is going to bump down a player's rank. After hearing the evidence, I, the judge, will break the tie.
So you're saying I am absolutely screwed?
I don't know. I kind of, let's be honest here. I am firmly on my side only, and possibly a little bit on Nick's, who's not playing. Okay. So,
Yeah, Michael, I will not let him disrespect you. Don't
All
worry.
right, well, then do me a favor as we're doing this, don't delete my stuff in the show doc, okay?
yeah, I'm sorry about that. That's my bad. All right, so our first set of ties are between Matthew Stafford, Kirk Cousins, and Mitchell Trubisky, all of whom came in at exactly 16th in average. Ryan, can you give me a opportunity for Matthew Stafford to break this tie?
All right, so an opportunity for Stafford is that he has finished as a fantasy QB1 5 times since 2012. So this is something he's done with some consistency. I believe last year was a fluke, and he might not be a QB1 in 2019, but he will bounce back from last year, and he will finish higher than 19th.
That's a very good point. He did have a broken back last year.
That he did.
Michael, can you give me a con for Matthew Stafford? Is there one?
Yes, there is, and it technically is the Kerryon Johnson breakout. I believe that Kerryon's the most talented player on the field when the Lions take the field. If you look at Darrell Bevell, the Seahawks ranked in the top 5 in rushing 4 out of Bevell's 7 seasons calling plays. So they could potentially ride Kerryon Johnson, and you might take that a little bit away from the quote-unquote inflated stats that you saw under my favorite football name, Jim Bob Cooter.
I don't even know what to say. Michael, could you give me an opportunity? I want to know what opportunity Kirk Cousins is going to see on the Minnesota Vikings that's going to bump him up above Stafford.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough. I think that looking at that receiving core, it could be the best tandem in the league, right? Without knowing Dalvin Cook's health, Nick, help me out here, but just kind of understanding that team, they might be put in a position to ride those two guys as well, along with Kyle Rudolph, and that opportunity and those play calls might start to get pretty unbalanced if they struggle. I'm not a really big believer in the whole negative game script conversation, but you have those 2 wide receivers, you need to use them.
All right, that's actually a pretty solid point. I'm surprised.
Thanks.
Ryan, Ryan, could you give me an obstacle for Cousins?
An obstacle for Cousins? Is there anything less exciting than drafting Kirk Cousins?
No.
I mean, yeah, I would chalk it up to his generic name or the lack of flash he shows on the field, but I'm not beaming with joy or confidence if I'm going into the season with Cousins as my number one QB option. He has a nice floor. Since he became a full-time starter in 2015, he's had at least 25 touchdowns and 4,000 yards each year. But it's just boring. I'm taking shots on guys that have a higher upside than that.
Wow.
Michael, are we tickling your fancy yet?
He's kicking your butt. All right. So the last person in this tie is Mitch Trubisky. You know what, Michael? I don't even want to hear from you. Ryan, can you give me a pro for Trubisky?
Absolutely, JJ.
Disrespect.
All right, so last year Trubisky, he showed a lot of flashes. He was what was he? He finished the quarterback 15 despite missing a couple games. He would have finished, I believe, the QB 13 at the same pace he was at. I think he's in the perfect system to highlight his strengths and work around his weaknesses. So I think that Trubisky is. I think that right where he's at with a 16.0 score is fair for right now, and that he could go higher, but something about him kind of feels Cutler-esque to me too. So
keep flowing into your con. You're doing really good.
Yes.
Yeah, I just felt like I had to at least get that in there.
No, give me your con too. I want to hear it. Go ahead.
Because he does make some boneheaded plays. Yeah. He's erratic with his ball placement. He'll make an amazing throw one play and then just completely miss an open guy the next. And
speaking of erratic ball placement, JJ.
I'm trying to be respectable.
Okay, good.
So speaking of erratic balls, continue, Ryan.
That was actually the end of my point.
Very good. All right, so if I may judge this round, clearly Ryan won, but I'm going to leave them in the order that they came. Matthew Stafford breaks the tie as the number one option. Kirk Cousins comes in at number 2. And Mitch Trubisky is just too erratic with his balls to rise higher than number 16. So you guys did a great job.
And really quickly, Michael talked about Dalvin Cook, just to give you a little bit of an update. Back in June, he did say that he is completely healthy. He said that he was able to be himself during the off-season program. He said, I was able to be me, fly around, and be Dalvin. Always good when you speak about yourself in the third person. That's why it went smooth. Now I'm back having fun. So going into the season, Dalvin Cook so far looking pretty good.
Very good. Well, JJ's going to introduce this next section. Our second tie is at 17 between Jameis Winston and Lamar Jackson. Michael, can you give me a pro for Winston?
Yeah, sure, which is actually kind of it was difficult, but he's young. He has the backing of Bruce Arians, and he's in an offense with so many receiving weapons. Maybe not the best running back tandem, but again, there's still time to figure that out, or we roll with Barber or Jones. He's going to throw it 600 times in the season. And if he makes good decisions, we're going to see those receiver athletes make some good plays.
Just keep going, Michael. Can you give me something about Lamar Jackson? That's an opportunity.
Yeah, so, again, on these ties, Lamar Jackson, I think the confidence that the team has in him, the draft capital that they've put into him, tailoring the offense really around him, which you have to do for a running quarterback, in my opinion. And, of course, his running ability, right? I mean, that is sometimes, the plus or minus that you want to add on a player especially if your league gets a lot more points for rushing touchdowns or points per carry or something like that. So I really like Lamar Jackson in that offense, and then his potential to grow and strengthen his arm as the seasons go.
All right, Ryan, can you give me a con for Lamar Jackson?
The con for Lamar Jackson is actually pretty easy. He cannot spend his whole career running on defenses. He needs to progress as a passer. I think the ability is there, but I'm wondering when he will put it all together. He looked really raw last year. And that QB1 pace he was on in the second half of 2018, from week 10 on last year, he was the number 11 quarterback in fantasy. And that is not sustainable unless he can make defenses fear his arm. And I'm not sure that happens this year.
What about Winston? What's his major obstacle?
Winston's major obstacle is himself. He's talented. He has a great arm, but 58 career picks in 4 seasons is a problem. And he hasn't actually shown any real improvement since he's been in the NFL. He's known for his off-the-field problems, and it kind of makes me wonder if Winston has either already peaked or if he's going to be on his way out after 2019.
Yeah, you guys both provided a lot of great information. I have to go with, although we had Jameis Winston ahead of Lamar Jackson, I am going to switch them. I think Lamar Jackson definitely wins this tie because of his upside. And as much as I hate to do it, Michael, I think your pros, your opportunities that you presented, more clearly defined, I think, what the upside of these two guys were. I think, Ryan, you did a great job with the obstacles, but I'm going to give the points to Ryan for this one.
This is like whose line is it anyway? The points.
Oh,
don't matter.
no.
For the record, I think you both did great.
Yay,
oh, my God.
I don't want a participation trophy, so...
Notice the guy who says points don't matter is the one who's losing.
Let's just keep it going. I better not get any points this entire episode.
All right, so Jimmy Garoppolo is our third biggest difference. JJ had him ranked at 17. Again, speaking in the third person.
Great stuff. Love it.
And Klaus had him at 25. So go ahead. I'll let you go first, Michael.
I don't really have much to say. I like his opportunity. I like some of the offensive weapons. Obviously, I like George Kittle. I think as Twitter or Reddit or the prognosticators would have you believe that Dante Pettis is all of a sudden the second coming here this year. I do think he's a sleeper that can do well. I just haven't seen it from him yet. I kept him back in the rankings because this is simply I liked other players before I liked Jimmy Garoppolo. So it might not win me the points here, but this was simply there were other players that I had ahead of him and almost had quote-unquote nothing to do with his prowess until I see it. I mean, I'm from the Show Me State. That's Missouri. You have to show me. I need to see something from him for a season or two before I can put him a little higher.
Yeah, honestly, I give this point to you. I'm not a fan of Jimmy G. I put him here because I think he does have some upside. I think the Shanahan offense has a spot open for a high-producing QB in it. But you're right. You're absolutely right, Michael. I'm just putting Jimmy G into that spot. Not based on anything I have seen, but just based upon that role can be very high-producing in fantasy. So I defer. Great job.
Don't start giving me points now. I'm gonna get greedy.
All right. So the next two guys I kind of lumped together. So number 20 in our rankings is Drew Brees, and number 21 is Ben Roethlisberger. So I like both of these players, but for me, this ranking is based solely off of their age. I don't believe that Drew or Ben or Tom or Philip will play all 3 years that we were basing our ranking off of, right? We were basing on who would you draft for 3 years, a 3-year plan for your dynasty team. My ranking for these 4 guys overall is based off of them playing 2 years or less each. They are all top 15 QBs this season, but I can't say that I would draft them in a dynasty if I was planning for a 3-year window. However, I will say this. If you do draft them, couple them with a young QB or their heir apparent. If you draft Drew Brees, add Teddy Bridgewater. If you draft Tom Brady, add Jarrett Stidham. Right? Or even draft players who may get a shot to start the next 2 years. Somebody like Nick Mullins, who performed so well last season, and maybe when he's a free agent after this year might get some play. And also Jacoby Brissett, who also showed up and performed pretty well when Andrew Luck was out. It was kind of a bad situation. But look for those guys to grab in the later rounds if you are going with one of these older QBs.
That's a great take, actually, and I'm being genuine. Like I couldn't have said it better myself. That was spot on because I felt so weird ranking Drew Brees and Ben Roethlisberger as low as I did, and but the way you just explained that is perfect, and so we have coming up next at 22. This is going to be the third and final round of the Michael JJ battle. This is for all the I'm gonna tell you guys right now, you're tied 1-1. This is for all the cookies. All right. So Michael has Josh Allen as his 16th quarterback, and JJ has him all the way down at 27. This is our number one largest difference in rankings.
I'm gonna keep this fairly succinct. Okay. You told me last time I kept talking, and you know what? My words diminished, and you stopped listening.
I'm sorry. Did you say something?
I did. And the statement I was just about to make is, who else is going to score fantasy points on that team? There's a clap emoji in between each of those words. Okay? Who? Like, again, we've had talks that LaShawn McCoy might not even make the team here. Frank Gore is, still the running back god here. He could do some things. But there's a couple receivers that people are putting some stock into, with Robert Foster and John Brown. I know that Josh Allen did a lot with his legs last year. And I think that he'll continue to do that. The Bills schemed him to do a lot of play action, but they also had a lot of actual running plays for him. While I don't think that he's Lamar Jackson, I don't think that he's Cam Newton, I also don't think that he's Tim Tebow either. So somebody's got to score points in that team, and he's my best opportunity.
Well, that was definitely the longest succinct debate I've ever heard.
Once I got going, I couldn't stop. Sorry.
No, I like your points. Here's my problem with Josh Allen, and I'm thinking about the best way I can say this. Josh Allen is a bad quarterback. Like, I hope I'm clear with what I'm trying to say here. He is not an NFL caliber quarterback.
But he scores fantasy points.
Which is fantastic. That is awesome. But he scores them in a way that is not sustainable, right? They do not call as many running plays for him as they do for Lamar Jackson, right? In Baltimore.
Correct.
His plays are based off of scrambles. He is not as good of a runner as Lamar Jackson. I don't think he's as good of a passer as Lamar Jackson. And I just don't see how Josh Allen, with his scattershot arm, can sustain a level of play for 3 years, right? This is for 3 years to put him above. I would rather take Drew Brees or Ben Roethlisberger or Tom Brady for 2 years than Josh Allen for 3, because I know what they're going to bring every game that they play. Josh Allen, I don't know what I'm going to get. We could get a 100-yard rushing game. We could get a 10-yard rushing game with 4 interceptions. I like consistency.
Oof. That's you guys, this is gonna be tough. I think I'm gonna have to give the victory to Michael here, actually.
I was actually about to call it for JJ because after listening to him, I almost kind of agreed.
No, because like here's the thing, you're both right. No, because here's the thing, you guys are both right. Josh Allen, I don't think he's going to be a guy that is a quarterback at this level for the next decade. But for the next 3 years, the Bills aren't doing anything. They're going to be trying to make this Josh Allen thing work. And as much as I agree with JJ that Allen's not a very good quarterback, somebody on that Bills team needs to score fantasy points, and Josh Allen is more likely than anybody at this point.
I would like to go to Nick for a second opinion.
I was going to say, I think Michael broke the cardinal rule of debate in admitting that the other person wins. It's usually, not what you want to do when you try to win an argument. So I do have to say, on that alone, I might have to give it to JJ.
Well deserved. Let's keep moving.
What?
We're almost finished.
Let's call it a tie, and we can debate it on the next podcast.
Just keep it going.
Keeping it going then. We just covered Josh Allen at 22, and at 23, Phillip Rivers comes in. As JJ said on the Breeze and Big Ben rankings, this is not an indictment of the kind of quarterback Phillip Rivers is. He was a low-end QB1 last year, and he should have a similar performance in 2019 with a very nice supporting cast around him. However, looking out 3 years, it's safe to wonder whether Rivers can maintain that same level of performance, especially for a full season without running out of gas toward the end. There's always a chance that a guy his age decides to hang it up within the next couple of years. A solid short-term quarterback, not sure how I feel about him in the long term. And coming in at 24th, we're going to wrap it up with Dwayne Haskins, who is my number 18 quarterback. Wow.
I'm very much against this, by the way.
So I've been very high on Haskins all offseason. I've said on the pod that I think he's a franchise quarterback. So this is my train of thought with this ranking. If Haskins isn't at least seen as the number 18 quarterback option in 3 years, he is either not a franchise quarterback yet, or he's not going to get there. So I'm betting on Haskins and Jake Gruden and the coaching staff there in Washington to get Haskins to that point. And so while I'm not relying on him in 2019, I have no hesitation adding him to my dynasty teams because long term I think Washington has themselves a good quarterback.
You started that out by saying that you have been very high on Haskins all off season. I think you could have just gotten rid of the on Haskins and just said, I have been very high this off season.
No, Ryan, I even said to you I'm against it. I don't know that I'm necessarily against Haskins, but it's tough for me to leave out Tom Brady, on this list. Why is he an omission for you?
Tom Brady comes in at 25th if we decided to do the standard top 25. But he's just old. He's 42. He's closer to being a senior citizen than he is to the age of incoming rookies. I mean, think about that. He's closer to 60 than the 21-year-old rookies that are coming in right now. in 3 years, he's going to be 45. He'll probably be retired. He finished as the number 14 quarterback in fantasy last year, and he's set up to finish even lower this year. His arm isn't what it used to be. I think New England's going to run the ball a lot. Here's the thing. Touchdown Tommy, he'll probably win another Super Bowl before he hangs it up, just to spite all us non-Pats fans, but he isn't winning me, you, or anyone else fantasy Super Bowls anymore.
Goddamn Tom Brady. I agree with you 100%. Another omission that we might want to talk about a little bit is Derek Carr of the Oakland Raiders. I was listening to the RSP podcast with Matt Waldman and Dwayne McFarland, who are doing an amazing series recently, breaking down and projecting offenses. And the main thing they pointed out about Derek Carr is that unlike most QBs, he does worse with play action versus regular pass plays. So Derek Carr's issue is he has a hard time going off script when a play breaks down, or when he takes his eyes off of the receivers and then tries to reacquire his targets. I mean, it sounds like such a simple concept because most QBs can do it, but Derek Carr can't. It's his major weakness. And I am very worried about what's going to happen with Antonio Brown this year because he was so used to just extending plays, and Big Ben would find him eventually. That's not going to happen with Carr because Carr can't improvise. Yeah, so I think something's going to break there, and all signs point to Derek Carr.
Another notable omission that we at least want to touch on really quickly is Marcus Mariota out of Tennessee. Nick, what are you thinking?
Yeah, I'll keep this one quick. Marcus is a guy whose number one priority this year needs to be to stay healthy, right? Like, really quick, I just want to run down all the things he went through last year. He dealt with an ulnar nerve issue, which, if you remember, he had to wear a glove on his hand just to help him grip the ball, right? He suffered a stinger in Week 11 and then re-injured it in Week 16. He sustained a fractured vertebrae. His plantar fascia had a significant tear during the season, strained an oblique, broke a rib, and finally sprained his AC joints in his shoulder, right? So that's a pretty long list there. There's a lot of questions here about his health and even his talent at this point, which is pretty crazy to think about when you think back to all the hype coming out of Oregon.
So is Marcus Mariota a quarterback that we could label injury prone?
I would say after that long laundry list, yes. He definitely went through a lot last year. So I would have to say yes.
So our Tier 4 quarterbacks were, I'm going to run through this: Jimmy Garoppolo, Drew Brees, Ben Roethlisberger, Josh Allen at 22, 23, Phillip Rivers, 24 was Dwayne Haskins. That is going to do it for us today. Again, thank you to Nick Mirabito for coming in to talk about some of those injury concerns and also giving us that insight on our quarterback rankings. We certainly hope you had a good time.
Of course, anytime. I had a great time, and this was great. Thanks, guys.
Well, we're going to hold you to that. So we loved having you, and we're definitely going to see you back on this podcast again soon. Really, to our listeners, thank you so much for listening. You can grab all of our info in the next 30 seconds and, of course, holler at us on Twitter. The rest of the Rider Dynasty team gets to say the last word. I will say, have a great night.
Catch you in the next one.
Boat drinks.
Thank you for listening to the Rider Dynasty podcast. If you have enjoyed the pod, please subscribe and leave us a rating and review on iTunes. Follow the guys on Twitter at Ride or Dynasty. You can follow JJ at JJ Wenner. Ryan is at BixPixFFB. And Michael is at Michael S. Kloss. Check out our website, rideordynasty.com. And remember, we have your back.
Your reputation far exceeds your skills, Mammy.